After the broadcast of a TV movie about teenage suicide in 1984, teen suicide rates increased measurably in the regions where the movie aired. The same pattern has been documented after high-profile celebrity suicides. Local and national rates rise in the weeks following. This is observational learning at its most sobering. People do not only learn by doing, they learn by watching, and what they watch shapes what they are willing to do. Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory proposed that humans learn a great deal through observation, watching others perform behaviors and noting the consequences, without any direct reinforcement of their own behavior. This was a fundamental challenge to strict behaviorist accounts that required reinforcement for learning to occur. Observational learning explains how children acquire language, social norms, emotional responses, and complex skills far faster than trial-and-error reinforcement could account for. The model's behavior is stored as a representation that can be reproduced later when the appropriate situation arises. Bandura's Bobo doll experiments demonstrated observational learning of aggression. Children watched an adult model either aggressively beat an inflatable Bobo doll, punching, kicking, and hitting it with a mallet while using aggressive verbal labels, or interact with other toys non-aggressively. Children who watched the aggressive model later showed substantially more aggression toward the doll than those who watched the non-aggressive model or saw no model at all. Critically, children who watched the model be punished for aggression imitated less than those who saw the model rewarded, demonstrating that observed consequences affect vicarious learning. Bandura identified 4 processes that determine whether observational learning occurs and translates into behavior. Attention is required. You must notice and attend to the model's behavior. Retention requires encoding the behavior into memory so it can be retrieved later. Reproduction requires the physical and cognitive capacity to perform the behavior. Watching a gymnast cannot teach you to do a backflip if you lack the motor capability. Motivation determines whether learned behavior is actually performed. Vicarious reinforcement increases performance. Vicarious punishment decreases it. All 4 processes must operate for observational learning to produce imitative behavior. Martin Seligman and Stephen Meyer discovered learned helplessness through an experiment in which dogs were exposed to inescapable electric shocks. When later placed in a shuttle box where they could easily escape shocks by jumping over a barrier, most of these dogs did not try. They lay down passively and accepted the shocks. Dogs in a control condition that had received escapable shocks learned the escape response readily. Seligman concluded that the inescapable shock experience taught the dogs that their responses were independent of outcomes, that nothing they did made a difference, and this belief transferred to new situations where control was actually available. Seligman and colleagues reformulated learned helplessness in cognitive terms through the attributional model. People who explain bad events in terms of internal causes, my fault, stable causes, this will always be true, and global causes, this affects everything in my life, are most vulnerable to learned helplessness and depression. This explanatory style is the cognitive mechanism through which uncontrollable events become debilitating rather than merely unpleasant. Cognitive therapy for depression specifically targets these attributional distortions, teaching people to make more specific, unstable, and external attributions for failures. Learned helplessness has been applied to explain several important human phenomena. Depression, Seligman argued, is in part a learned helplessness state. Depressed individuals believe that their efforts cannot improve their situation, leading to the passivity and withdrawal that characterizes depression. Students who repeatedly fail academic tasks despite effort may develop learned helplessness in educational contexts, giving up not because they are incapable, but because they have learned to expect no relationship between their effort and their outcomes. Trauma survivors may develop helplessness responses to situations that triggered but differ from the original trauma. Self-efficacy is Bandura's concept of a person's belief in their capacity to execute the behaviors required to produce specific outcomes. Self-efficacy is not global self-esteem. It is specific to particular tasks and domains. A person may have high self-efficacy for public speaking and low self-efficacy for mathematics. High self-efficacy predicts greater effort, persistence in the face of setbacks, lower anxiety, and better performance across educational, athletic, occupational, and health domains. It is built through mastery experiences, vicarious learning from similar others, social persuasion, and physiological states. Bandura's social cognitive theory rejects both the behaviorist view that behavior is determined solely by environment and the purely cognitive view that internal states determine behavior. Instead, reciprocal determinism holds that three factors: person, cognitive processes, beliefs, self-efficacy, behavior, and environment, are mutually influential. Your environment influences your behavior, but your behavior also changes your environment, and your cognitive interpretation of both shapes your responses. A shy person's behavior reduces social opportunities, which reduces confidence, which increases shyness, a reciprocal cycle in both directions. Mirror neurons, discovered in macaque monkeys by Giacomo Rizzolotti's group in the 1990s, are neurons that fire both when an animal performs an action and when it observes another animal performing the same action. The mirror neuron system has been proposed as a neural substrate for observational learning, imitation, empathy, and understanding others' intentions. In humans, brain areas homologous to monkey mirror neuron regions show increased activity when observing actions. The mirror neuron theory of empathy proposes that we understand others' emotions by internally simulating them, feeling what we see. Social cognitive theory transformed our understanding of learning by showing that cognition, observation, and social context are not add-ons to conditioning, but central to how learning occurs. Bandura's insight that people are not passive recipients of environmental contingencies, but active agents who observe, model, interpret, and choose makes social cognitive theory the bridge between behaviorism and the fully cognitive psychology that followed it.